Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. Today I'm going to respond directly to a comment and I'm going to show that comment here. So shout out to Mikael M, and I'm going to read that comment here and then I'm going to answer the question. My sister, who's very into YouTube, has told me that shouting out to people in your videos is apparently a great way to engage the audience. So I'm going to start trying that because I do get ideas for videos and a lot of times I don't actually always give due credit to the person who inspired me, so today it's Mikael. Great job. And also a note on my earrings, because I keep getting lots of comments, mostly in Russian, about how many pairs of earrings do you have? I don't know, probably 200, but they're my favorite item to collect, and the story about these is I bought these in Malta, I think in Valletta, when I was there last summer. So I thought maybe if I include where my earrings are from, that might be interesting too, because a lot of them are from different countries. Okay, so Mikael M says, and I'm going to share it here for you to see as well. Moikka, and thanks, Mikaela, for your insightful videos about your experience in Lappeenranta and about the Finns. I don't know how you came to my recommendation, but I'm happy that you did. You're a sunshine. Thank you very much for that. I really do try to be a sunshine, I guess. I want to be a positive influence in people's lives, so I do try. Thank you. Okay, so how would you like your work life in the US to be after living in Finland, and how, I guess, would it be achievable? Just a thought for you, if nothing else. Thanks for sharing your views and keep up the good work. Teresin Mikael. Thank you, Mikael, again. I really like it when I get easy ones, and this I think is very easy, so I'm going to share a little bit about this. Because this is posted under the loneliness video and is also related to workaholism, I think that in order for me to live a more balanced life, which I think is always the objective, I would definitely need to work less. I was doing research on workaholism, and it is fairly difficult to argue workaholism since people do need to work to live. So is it really that I'm working too much, or am I just working enough to be able to keep up with the rising cost of living given the economy? So it's a very difficult thing to answer, I think, in terms of what is too much work, because it's not really like Finland where it's not accepted or expected to work multiple jobs. People here almost they're looking at working 3 jobs as being almost like a sort of badge of honor for you reaching your financial goals or doing what you need to do to support yourself. I think people here really, okay, this may be a controversial way of putting it, but like to play the victim, like, oh, life is so hard for me and I did this and I did that. And it's almost like a prideful thing to be able to, say that you've supported yourself, which I do understand this because I'd say in my family, I've seen a lot of women who don't really work and then the husband just takes care of them and then they stay at home and raise the kids. Now, if you start doing some investigation into how much childcare costs in the US, which is roughly more than $1,000 per month per child, which I know is kind of laughable because in Finland I heard that it's like 40 euros. It kind of starts to make sense why one parent ends up staying at home, because cost wise, a lot of times with, normal people jobs, it doesn't really make sense to have both people employed in the workforce because it just doesn't financially work out that way. So I think that's kind of a hard thing, even though I've seen a lot of my life, to be able to want to do, like let somebody else work and then I stay at home. And maybe that's because I saw a lot of that in Finland, and I know that there's a way that it doesn't have to be like the way it is in the US. I was very impressed by the amount of dads I would see out with their kids alone, without the mom, who were pushing the stroller and just like with the baby. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Or just even being around Finnish guys who I would see clean kitchens and stuff, which I know you're like, well, how would you not? You live alone. But yeah. So anyway, going back to what would my life look like here, I would like to still work. I think working is important. I think it's important for my psychological well-being. I never really want to stop working, except for maybe the first year or two I'd be at home with a kid. That's probably the only exception I'd make. But I want to stay in the workforce for most of my life because I enjoy working. I think it's important and I want to do it. So I don't think not working is what I want to do. I think working less is what I want to do. I don't really like the fact that I work 2 jobs, but there are certain reasons and certain goals that I have which promote me working 2 jobs. I think even during the times I was unemployed, like during COVID, I came back from Kyrgyzstan and the only job I had was the restaurant, and the restaurant wasn't taking people back, so I ended up being on unemployment for a while. Yeah, that was kind of a crazy time because then nobody wanted to go back to the restaurant. I'm not sure if people are aware of this in other countries, so I'll disclose this. Coming back after COVID to the restaurant was very difficult in terms of there was not a lot of staff because people were making so much money on unemployment, more money than they'd ever made in their lives compared to what they'd make working in the service industry. That's very hard to get people back into working in restaurants, at least in democratic states. I think it may have been different in Republican states, which tend to have less social welfare. Anyway, so during that time when, I didn't have a reason to work, I was being given money to sit at home. I was taking language classes, so that's a hobby. I really love doing that. I'm always willing to pay money for language classes. I couldn't travel, which is the other thing I'm always willing to pay money for, so I wasn't doing that. And I had a social life that was pretty robust on Zoom, and a lot of it was centered around language learning. I also was teaching Russian a little bit. Like, I had a Russian conversation hour for the university I was studying at, and I led that every week. Excuse me. So I think that I still find things to do, and I was also selling things on Facebook Marketplace. So these are things I talked about in my hobby video. So that's what I do during COVID. Now let's pretend COVID doesn't exist and I don't need to work so much. Again, I'd still want to work because I think it's important. However, I wish I had more time to spend with friends, sincerely and truly. And the problem with spending time with friends now, while I do have friends I can definitely hit up at any moment and be like, hey, let's go out to dinner, because again, I explained that this is the default way of socializing in the US, but I also don't feel comfortable with where I am financially just dropping, $50 to $100 to go out to eat, as I already explained in another video. And especially right now, it's the season for the restaurant, so I am working at the restaurant. So, again, assuming that money is not an issue, I wish I could just casually go out to eat more. I was actually doing that a lot when I first came back from Finland because, as I explained, I was feeling a little bit depressed, and I was like, how can I feel less depressed? Go out to eat. I do like going out to eat, honestly, but it's expensive. I know that because I work in a restaurant now, but in general, it is. So that, and then, I wish I had more time to spend with not just friends, but also with family. I am trying to make more of a concerted effort to spend time with my little sister, especially while I'm currently still living at home. So that's been a new goal for me probably as of the last couple days, and I actually have plans to spend time with her tomorrow night, so that's great. So I just wish life here could be more balanced, and I wish that there wasn't a sort of weird societal shame that came with trying to be more balanced and admitting to wanting to work less, because that's sort of what it feels like. And maybe these are just the people I interact with, maybe these are just my family members. And then, as I explained already, this leads to a bit of isolation for me personally, because I don't want to have conversations where I feel like people are putting more expectations on me to do more and to work more, and then I get tired emotionally, and then I retreat to things like working more, which I already do. I mean, if we're counting this YouTube thing as a job, which I don't. I think it's a fun hobby. I'm, in addition to doing this and being pretty active with this, I am also being very active with my regular job and then the restaurant job, and then I exercise every day. Oh yeah, exercising, I will always exercise. I love exercising. I'm mostly a cardio person, so I'm mostly doing swimming and running. Yeah. So my perfect life would just be balanced. It would be one in which I'm able to see my friends regularly, one in which I'm able to still hold a job where I still exercise, and less is expected of me from a cultural, societal, and familial perspective. I think one of the things that's causing me the most anxiety right now, and I'm a naturally anxious person, so whatever part of it's just me, is that I really want to be able to support myself with moving out. Now, I think I'm going to do a video about this in Russian as well, probably today after I do this one. And if I move out, it doesn't really make a lot of sense financially because, as I've always explained, I never wanted to have to compromise my standard of living. So that was part of why I wanted to get a college education. I wanted to be able to have a better paying job because I like traveling, and that's something that I always want to be able to do. Will work for travel, like literally. I will work at the restaurant for the rest of my life if I need to, if it means that I can travel. So without sacrificing that, moving out is not very feasible. They say that you're supposed to spend something like 30% on your housing, which if I were to rent where I live with just my regular job, that would not be what was happening. It'd be more than half, okay? So I think a perfect life would be one that's more similar to what my life was like in Finland. I didn't worry about my housing costs. I had lots of free time to socialize. I had time to exercise. The expectations were very low. I don't want to say low, but like compared to the US, it's like nobody's just, poking you and being like, you're not working hard enough. Like, you just kind of feel it. Like, the way that I always describe it is when I was trying to get a job at NASA and I went to, it was a class I actually liked, and I got a B in the class, right? So that's like, let's say a 4 in Finland. It's not a 5, it's a 4. And I go to the professor, I'm like, will you write a recommendation letter for me for NASA? And he goes, I will, but it can't be super glowing because you only got a B in my class. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, and I think that sums it up well. Whereas, I got a 3 on my master's thesis, which I'm honestly more proud of myself for, like, not caring so much about that, because if it were me 2 years ago, I would have. And still, a professor took me on just because, for my PhD, just because she liked me. I was also getting comments about what do I study. So I studied, in my bachelor's degree, I studied business analytics and information technology. That's one major. I also studied Russian as my other major, and I also studied European studies as my other major. And how that all came to be is a story for another time. However, I then continued with business analytics at LUT. I got my master's in, so technically it's business, yes. And then for my PhD, although it's under the engineering school, it's really social sciences, and I'm going to be conducting information about disinformation with NASA particularly through a Russian media lens, which I'm excited about because I get to do research in Russian and keep using my Russian. Yeah, great. Okay, so that's everything that I have for today. I know that went a little bit wayward, so I guess also my perfect life involves intellectual challenge and stimulation. I don't think that the research I'm going to be doing is particularly lucrative, per se. However, it is something that I'm passionate about and I'm excited to do. So, I think that a perfect life is one in which you have enough money to do all the things you want to do, to live independently, to travel, to be able to go out to eat with your friends, but also one where I can be intellectually stimulated through doing some research, doing a challenging job, and, not feeling like what I'm doing is never enough. And that's one of the things that I dreaded so much with coming back to the US is, Finland was the first place where I think I felt like what I was doing was enough. I'm not even sure I had that experience in Kyrgyzstan, probably because I was there learning Russian and I was constantly learning, so, I was never quite there. I mean, now I'm probably there enough with Russian for what I want to do with it, but in Finland, I just felt like everybody kind of accepted you with where you were, and people were very understanding, very empathetic. I feel like you don't get that same level here in the US. People, again, I think the struggle is real and it hardens people, and they're not empathetic sometimes, and it sucks. That's really all I have to say about it. All right, so I hope that answers the question. I'm sure I have more questions I can answer. Maybe I'll do another shout out if I find a comment that leads to inspiration to do a video. All right, well, thank you everybody for your time and attention, and until my next video, bye.